Hi, welcome back to Be Chef Online School, and today we are going to prepare this very traditional French piece. It's a single serving recipe. This is a macaron that we're going to make with almond powder. We're going to make these small biscuits with meringue, very spongy, that drives crazy everyone. And as you can't see, we've got so many things on the table. We've got our food processor, where we're going to refine our almond powder and the sugar, which we're going to use to make a marzipan. We also have the saucepan that we're going to use for our water, the sugar. We're going to use this to make them look yellow. And on the other side, we've got our mixer with the egg whites, a small amount of sugar, the starter cream, and a little bit of powdered albumin or powdered egg whites to boost the texture and the volume of our meringue. So let's see. Someone can say, I cannot make macarons. I never achieve a good result. It is a very simple process because in the end it has less than 10 ingredients, but at the same time it's very complex because we need to be very regular. There are some other things to take into account. For example, the atmospheric pressure, the temperature in your work spot. But I will say something. All of the recipes might be different, but they are in the end very similar. So let's go through all of the ingredients. We've got egg whites, sugar, almond powder. We've got also grated coconut. And we also have water, sugar, sucrose, yellow coloring in two formats. One's more lemon yellow and the other one is more egg yellow. And on the other side, we've got for the meringue. So, for the meringue base, it's egg whites, sucrose, albumin, and the tartar cream. So, how does this work? Why do I use tartar cream? Why do I use albumin? We need a meringue with a certain texture. The egg white, when it's fresh, the albumin protein is together. That's why we see a difference between the fresh egg white and the pasteurized egg white. The starter cream will divide those albumin proteins, and this way it will boost the process, and it's going to be easier to add air to that meringue. So that's pretty much it. So let's start. First thing is going to be to put the sugar first in the food processor. This is icing sugar. There's so many types of sugar. So let's turn it on. We want to grind this, make it very thin powder. So let's open this and help it with the spatula so that the mix is completely homogeneous. So this is it, completely grinded. We just do this process because what happens with almond powder is that depending on where you buy it, sometimes it's more thick or more thin. This way we always make sure that the size of our grains is the same always. Regarding the amount of egg whites that we're going to add, this is the first part. So let's just reserve our marzipan right here. So the next thing, we've got our powdered, completely refined. And what we're going to do is add the egg whites that we prepared for the marzipan. And that's just mixing it with a spatula. This is the first thing we must control, which is that sometimes the marzipan texture might change depending on the season that you're in. It is true that nuts are more hydrated or more dried out during summer. So all of the product that we've got in our pastry shop normally just dries out more easily. That also happens with flowers in pastry. So you might need to add 10 to 15 grams more of egg whites to make the same texture that you would get in winter. In my experience, I think I will need a little bit more egg whites. This is a very interesting texture, but it might be too hard for what I want to achieve. So I got my egg whites. I will just add it and see how it changes. Maybe 10 to 20 grams more. I think 20 more grams is more than enough. We don't need more. It's got a very good texture. This is exactly what we wanted. Very creamy. You can't see how it has changed. So the next thing is to put the water, the sugar, our colorings are in. You've got the recipe, and let's turn this on. Let's also prepare this piping bag with a number 8 nozzle. I think this is the nozzle that works better for me when making macarons. And we're going to start putting the ingredients in the mixer. Egg whites. There's a small amount of albumin. And the tartar cream. Turn it on. So once this starts boiling, we're going to start checking the temperature. This is starting to boil, and when it gets to 110 or 115 degrees, we're going to start whipping the egg whites very energetically. It is now at 111, so let's speed up the egg whites. And this should get to 118 degrees. Remember, we have to cook our syrup to 118 degrees. So we're there. We can just remove these from the heat. Let's add the sugar in the mixer. And we're gonna get a very creamy meringue. So let's start adding the syrup like so, very slowly and from the side.
Muy bien. Perfecto. Ya tenemos nuestro merengue y a velocidad media vamos a dejar.
So our meringue is done. We're gonna lower down the speed a little bit and then wait for it to get to 40 degrees. To do so, we're going to use this laser thermometer to check the temperature. It is now at 48 degrees. It's not going to take long, just 2 to 3 minutes. 45 degrees, great temperature. And I will take it out when it gets to 40 degrees. It is now at 42, 43. So 40.9. Let's turn it off. And look at this. Very, very creamy. This is exactly what we were looking for. It shouldn't be a solid meringue. It should be very, very creamy. So with that same spatula that we're using for the marzipan, we're going to add half of the meringue. Just half of it. And we're going to start working our meringue with the marzipan. Very smoothly. Try not to add too many bubbles. Just work it. We want a very creamy texture. And once this first part is mixed, we're going to add the second batch. That's it. And we can't continue.
Seguimos mezclando de forma circular hasta conseguir la textura que estamos buscando. Bueno, ¿cómo debe ser la textura?
So, what should the texture be like? It should be creamy, smooth, semi-liquid. We can see how it holds the shape still. And when we stop mixing, it just spreads out. For now, it's got a lot of texture. And we should make it a little bit more smooth through mixing with a spatula. This is the macaron process. This is what it is called in France.
Súper importante, intentamos no incorporar mucho aire. La verdad es que luego todo ese aire que incorporamos al mezclar,
Too much air.
luego nos van a desarrollar burbujas muy
If we had too much air inside, then we would get too many bubbles inside of the shells when we make them.
Seguimos volviéndolo cremoso y podemos apreciar ya que casi
We
llega.
can appreciate how we are almost in the texture that we want.
Así que un poquito más
So just a little bit more,
y ya,
and that's pretty much it.
ya casi está. Muy bien. Pues con esto, amigos, vamos. Ya podemos apreciar
And with that, you can see the texture. It just goes down.
que vamos haciendo van desapareciendo. Así que
It's more smooth, it's more liquid. This is a sign that it is done.
dos vueltas más, asegurándonos de que no nos quede mazapán en la base.
Just a couple more rounds, making sure that there's no marzipan on the bottom.
De nuestros amigos de Silicon
And now we're gonna put that in the piping bag.
con el tamaño.
This is a Silicomart silicone mat,
Pues muy bien, amigos.
which has these drawings which just guide you through this macaron making process.
De esta manera, quitamos algunas burbujas grandes que podemos haber incorporado a la hora del trabajo. Y lo vamos a incorporar de esta manera, poco a poco, también, para ir quitando las burbujas que hemos incorporado.
We're also going to put it in piping bag like this. This is a way we're taking out those possible bubbles that we put while mixing.
Muy bien. Perfecto. Y nos vamos a dejar la manga muy cerquita, el bol también. Y vamos a bajar la mezcla. Y vamos a comenzar.
And let's start dosing.
Miramos este giro que hacemos al final.
Notice that I am finishing with a little twist.
Muy bien, ya los tenemos dosificados.
And once they are dosed, we're just going to tap the tray like so.
La mano para que ellos bajen y se sprayen un poquito.
This way they're spreading out very evenly.
Muy bien. Aquí ahora hay que
So
hacer un proceso,
now
¿vale?
we have to go through this drying process,
de secado nuestros macarons y luego un poquito
and then
les vamos
after 5 minutes we're going to put the grated coconut on top.
5 minutos, ponemos el coco y pasaremos un proceso de secado aproximado.
This drying process is going to be approximately 30 minutes. And now let's start with the next tray of macarons.
Toda la receta. Muy bien. Aquí nuestra tercera bandeja.
So this is our third tray of macarons.
Esta parte porque
This part is very, very important
se nos va a posicionar en la parte superior.
when we tap it, because when we tap it, those bubbles, possible bubbles that we've got inside, they're going to go up and disappear.
Alguna burbuja que podemos haber incorporado. Perfecto.
And now, once again, let's just leave them to dry.
El coco
We're gonna put the coconuts right now.
que rebosarlos en
We don't want to baste them in coconut, but we want to put a little bit more. Remember that our ganache is going to be made with exotic fruits.
de mango, pasión y azafrán. Así que un poquito de coco le va
So the coconut will work very, very well with those ingredients.
un poquito así, un detallito.
Just a small detail on top of each of the shells.
Ya los tenemos. Muy bien, amigos. Con esto
And with that, we're just going to leave them to dry for 30 minutes and then take them to the oven.
estos macarrones. Bueno, amigos, ya ha pasado
So it's been 30 minutes,
macarrón, aproximadamente unos 30 minutos, y los vamos
and now we're going to put them in the oven.
entre unos 120
Remember, 120 to 130 degrees,
18 y 20 minutos.
and for
Vamos del tiro.
18 to 20 minutes.
Mira que tienen los hornos o la capacidad de expulsar el vapor que se acumula dentro. Entonces, nosotros lo que vamos a hacer es coser
We're going to bake our macarons half of the time with the chimney open and then with the chimney closed. So,
y ya los tenemos rápidamente para que no se enfríe. Y vamos
and
a
we've
probar
got them
los 10 minutos.
for 10 minutes.
Bueno, amigos, continuamos nuestra receta de macarrón.
So let's continue with the recipe of our macarons. They are almost ready to be taken out of the oven.
Hacer es sacarlos con
We're
cuidado
going to take them out very carefully
en la...
and place them on the table.
Ponemos nuestras dos bandejas. Ya habíamos sacado una tercera, la tenemos.
Let's put both trays on the table. The third one, we took it out before.
Bueno, yo os voy a explicar.
And now I will tell you something that's very important in macarons.
Es que los sacamos
Once we take them out of the oven,
porque quema.
now very quickly,
Los vais
we're
a
gonna
sacar,
take them out of the tray
colocarlos
and put them
superficie en el cual coja frío
on a cold surface.
con la otra. Me voy a tener que
We need to apply this
esto es
cold very quickly,
caliente
very carefully, because this is very, very hot.
a poner aquí. Vale, esto es súper importante.
This is very, very important, because when we cool down the macaron little by little, the sugars are melted and sometimes it can just
Bajando el bizcocho. ¿Vale? La
lose some texture, lose that sponge texture that we've got inside of the biscuit. This way, when we cool it down quickly, we are going to prevent this from happening. So now we have to wait for it to cool down and continue to finish our macarons with our passion fruit and mango and saffron ganache.